a glance. She's over me. She's over me. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls of all ages, welcome to the Paranormal Portal. These are our Night Terrors episodes, so I hope you're all set for a great, entertaining evening, if all goes according to plan, which it may or may not. I can't be sure how this will all work out, but I'll certainly do my best. Hope you guys are having a great weekend. No, I know we're on the tail end of it and all that, but, I hope it was good while it lasted, whatever you did with it. I hope you had a great time, and thank you so much for joining me now and spending the remainder of it here with me. So I hope that I do well in closing out your weekend with lots of love and fun. So let's see. The phone lines, of course, are open throughout the duration of our show. So if any of you out there have anything paranormal that you'd like to share or some point that you'd like to discuss, please feel free to call in. The number is 720-923-0500. Again, 720-923-0500, or it'll be right there on your screen where I'm pointing. If you, a special thank you as well to all of you who are here for the Friday, Saturday shows. It was a lot of fun. We had Eric Mintel on Friday night, and Don and I had on Billy Ray Valentine last night from the Infinite Fringe. And we had a lot of fun. Great shows, both of them in their own right, and great discussion. They're just good people. It's just really cool. So I really enjoyed having them on, and I hope you guys enjoyed it as much as I did. It's always my intention to bring you the best shows I can, bringing you the best discussion and entertainment that I know how. But hopefully I hit the mark on all those, and I hope tonight is another one. I'd like to have the whole trifecta here for the Friday, Saturday, Sundays. So anyway, you guys sit back, grab a libation of your choice, lower the lights, light a candle, and get ready, because it's time for bed. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I guess that means we are now underway. So without further ado, I got some stories that I hope will be enjoyable. I haven't pre-read any of these, so we'll see. Sometimes they go really well. I got this whole bucket of information and material to work through, and so I just happy click on these randomly, and just hopefully they'll all be wonderful stories. But, the one thing about spiritual phenomena, and these are the Ghostly Encounters episodes that we're going to do tonight, another one of those, but I think that they are fascinating. And sometimes we just get, I don't know, I guess so inundated with some of these that it's kind of easy to lose the significance of this. Now, I will say that just in doing the show for the number of years that I have, of course, I've read thousands of stories, like literally, I don't know how many, but it feels like thousands and thousands. And, I think for, by and large, I've heard a lot of things. And repeated a lot of things, those things that seem to come up in story after story after story. However, how many times have I heard of EVPs? How many times have I heard EVPs? But I'll tell you, there's a real energy and excitement when you get one of your own. And when MCAT shared that file from when we were in Coloma, those files of those intelligent responses from the portal and the EVPs as well. I just found that so exciting and just so invigorating, and it's really got me going crazy to get back out there. There's a lot on the plate right now, ladies and gentlemen. There's a lot that I'm juggling, and I'm waiting to see how it's all going to filter out, because there's the portal, there's portal investigations that I want to do, and then there's 2 other side projects that I'm involved in that are not portal related directly, but one of which is the narration that's going to be coming up for the Walking with the Wild Man Part 2 from the IBRO, and that's going to be a lot of fun, but it's going to take some time, and as well as another project that I can't share with you yet, but it's a really exciting one that I'm really looking forward to getting involved in and starting to dig into. So there's a lot on the plate. But Don and I were just talking last night about how we'd like to get out there again. And we both have that itch. So we're going to be doing our best to work through something as quickly as we can. Hopefully before the end of summer, we're going to try to throw one together if at all possible. So stay tuned for more information on that as it becomes available. But the first story I got for you tonight is coming from Texas, ladies and gentlemen. And it has to do with haunted places. And it has to do with a church. So, I'll tell you, I love churches. I really do. And it's not because I have a bias towards any one religion. I think that all religions are phenomenal and fantastic in their own right, in that I think religion yearns to bring people closer to their divine source. And I think that that's beautiful. But I think there's a real special aura that I feel when I go into churches of, and maybe it's people coming in over generations and centuries, even in some cases, trying to make contact with that divine source. And I find that they have a unique energy. I've spent a lot of time in churches late at night, long after they're closed, and heard the footsteps walking around, heard, sounds that I couldn't quite understand. May have been paranormal, may not have been. They're old buildings, so they're maybe prone to shifting and adjusting and lots of weird noises, but there's just a really cool energy about churches. So I find that churches are very energetic places, at least for me in my experience. So I've always felt an energy in those places, and maybe it's kind of like cemeteries, Cemeteries have a lot of energy in them because, there's the mortal remains of people are there. Well, churches are much the same way. People are, in Christendom anyway, there's the baptisms, there's the, confirmations, there's communions, there's, all kinds of things. People coming in with their hearts broken, pleading, and, all these energy imprints that take place. And then there's funerals and the sobbing, and then there are the weddings, the celebration. And so there's all these incredibly powerful psychic imprints that get put onto these places. And it just really has a vibe all of its own. So, anyway, that's my setup for this story. It was kind of long-winded. I apologize for that, but let's see what this story says from Texas. It says, these events occurred at a church and the surrounding area in my hometown. When I was approximately 12 years old, 2 friends and I decided to stay up all night riding skateboards. Well, on the way back home, we were walking by the church. One of my friends said the church was haunted. He said that there was a connection to the church, that there was a connection to the church and the street lights that line the edge of the church property, as well as the lights on the cross attached to the church. My friend proceeded to say something towards the church that I considered really inappropriate. Before the words completely left his mouth, the street light above our heads went off. Of course, we took off running. I witnessed this a few more times over the next couple of years, and sometimes one of the lights on the cross would cut off. And this always occurred when certain things were spoken from the mouth. As time passed, I forgot all about these events. And when I was approximately 17, we started playing basketball at the church. The goal or court was in the church parking lot, and a core group of us would play basketball until the wee hours of the night. On one of those nights, we were still playing at about 2 a.m., and I began hearing music playing. This went on for several minutes, so I finally asked the others where this music was coming from. Well, no one really seemed to care. Well, I decided to jump in my truck and drive around the nearby houses, but I couldn't find the source of the music. When I returned, I could still hear it. But by this point, one of my friends had become curious as well, and he told me He walked through the playground near the church while I was gone, and he said it was the church choir. And one of the people singing was his girlfriend at the time, so I walked with him to the doors of the church, but by this time, the strange music had been playing steady for well over an hour. And sure enough, I heard what sounded like the church choir. I could even feel a faint vibration of several feet tapping on the old wooden floor of the church while standing on the outside porch. We listened for a few more minutes and then returned to our games, and when we left an hour later, the music was still steadily playing. As strange as it all was, the vibe I felt coming from inside the church was not an unhappy one. Of course, we investigated with the church. Was anyone working inside? Was there a tape recorder or CD player in there? And the answers were always no. There are other things that happen at this church from time to time. The old black and white TV playing a show that seemed to be from another era. There wasn't even a TV in that particular room. The light shows, the good vibes, and the bad vibes, usually when I was being bad. And as with everything, when a little time gets between things, we just store them away. I'm glad I was able to go back and do a little remembering. Yeah, that's pretty powerful. It stands to reason. The stone tape theory, of course, is a parapsychology idea that our world stores imprints. Stones, buildings store these psychic imprints to really brutalize and paraphrase it, but essentially that's what it is, and it's kind of considered the source for residual hauntings, which again are considered non-intelligent. They're just events that play over and over and over, and not for anybody in particular, but it is curious that the living can experience them. But maybe that's a cue or a clue of some sensitivity by the people that are experiencing it. I don't know. But very cool story. I like that one. All right, let's go on to the next one. And this one is from West Virginia and has to do with apparitions, voices, and touching. Touches. Not touching. Touches, not touching. Touches and touching, but it sounds a little weird saying touching. All right, let's continue here. This is a pretty short one. It says, one night after my husband and I went to bed, I woke in the middle of the night hearing what I thought was a female voice, even calling my name. I sat up in bed and looked at my clock, and it was 3 a.m. I sat there for a minute and listened, thinking maybe I was dreaming. Then it sounded like a ball bouncing outside of our bedroom door. Well, the floor outside our bedroom door is tile, so any noise could be heard really easily. The ball bounced 3 or 4 times and then stopped as quickly as it started. I didn't get up this time. I just let it go. The very next night, I woke up again at 3 a.m., hearing my name being called again. It was the very same voice I had heard the night before. Well, this time the voice called my name twice. It was like a long, drawn-out whisper. Then the ball started bouncing again right outside our bedroom door. It bounced 3 or 4 times, just like the previous night, and this time I knew I was wide awake and sure of what I had heard. I got up and went towards our bedroom door, and the sound of the ball bouncing stopped. Yeesh, that's weird. I went to check on the kids to make sure that they were okay, but they were sound asleep in their rooms. When my husband got up later that morning, I asked him if he had heard anything during the night, and he said no. So I guess whatever it was meant just for my ears. Well, since those 2 nights in a row, there haven't been any more noises, nor have I heard my name being called in the middle of the night. That is really wild. I gotta admit, hearing some unseen apparition calling your name has got to be kind of freaky. I've not experienced that. I don't think. I mean, perhaps, I've assumed it was someone alive that was calling me at some point in the past, but I don't know that I've heard any spectral voices calling my name. That has got to be wild, though. And that 3 a.m. mark, ladies and gentlemen, that comes up all the time in the paranormal. It's according to many researchers, paranormal researchers who are searching for ghosts and stuff. 3 to 4 a.m. is like the hot time. That's when it's go time for ghosts and spirits. It can be any other time as well, but there does seem to be something that happens at 3 a.m. that really triggers activity. And what that is, I don't know. I don't know why that would be the case. I don't even have a theory for that one. It's just something about 3 a.m. And maybe it's the Trinity, or some would say a mockery of the Trinity, but I don't think so. I think it must be something to do with the day and lunar cycles, or the day and night cycle, something to do with that transition of energy between the two. I would suspect it. I mean, some people would say, "Oh, it's 3 a.m. It's a mocking of the Trinity," and there might be grounds for that in some cases, but I don't think that's specifically what it is in all cases. Some people get too caught up in their dualities and stuff, and it's like, well, it's either good or it's bad, and if it's happening and it's 3 a.m., it's bad. Well, no, not really, but there does seem to be a lot of activity at that time. So the next story we're going to cover is coming from Washington. Washington. I don't know what it is. Why do some people say Washington? Or wash your hands. You got to wash your hands. I'm from Minnesota again, so this might be a Midwestern thing. I'm not sure. But there's some, and I heard it growing up, so I know it's a real thing, but some people say wash your hands. Wash, like W-A-R-S-H. And I don't know where they got that R from. It's not in the word, so. But then again, we have states like Illinois, and then there's Missouri when it clearly ends in an I. So I don't understand a lot of things, I guess. And I'm not making fun of any one place or not. It's just these peculiarities that stick out to me as I've lived my life, and it's like, why is it Illinois? Why isn't it Illinois? If it's not going to be sounded, just throw it out. Why even add that? Why make kids remember one more letter? I'm just saying. Oh, that's interesting. Pharmacy Seeds Network, one of our mods and a good friend of the show, and mine as well, says Nikola Tesla said there was a 3-foot-high green energy field that was most intense at 3 a.m. That's interesting. I'd never heard that before. I'm going to have to look into that because Tesla knew his stuff. That guy was way ahead of his time. Wow. A 3-foot-high green energy. And maybe that's what fuels that paranormal energy. I don't know. I don't know what a green energy is, a green energy field, but that's very interesting. Huh. Very cool. It's French. Illinois is French? Okay. Well, that makes sense then. Now, Andrew, you might have just solved this for me because all this time I was like, why is there an S there? Why don't we say that S? But if it's French, then would it be Illinois? I don't know. Illinois, maybe? I don't know. I have a hard enough time at English, so interesting. What do you mean Wes would say? I say interesting all the time. What do you mean, bomber? Don't summon the Germer. Sorry, that was a really loud swallow, but that's how it rolls. Andrew Finnerty says Tesla is like science Jesus. That's pretty cool comparison. I mean, obviously. What? Just kidding about Illinois? Oh, man, I thought you were educating me, Andrew. That's it. 10 demerits. I didn't know. I'm wondering why there's an S on the end. All right. Anyway, I'm sorry. I'm just being punchy tonight. I'm kind of tired. Excuse me. All right. So the next one is coming from Washington, not Washington. It says, my parents and I went to Missoula. Well, I know what that is. I went to Missoula for a week when I was around 2. On our return, my parents received a really sad call telling us my uncle had died. I couldn't accompany them as the roads were too dangerous for me to travel with them, so I had to stay home with my sister and her boyfriend. Not long after my parents had left, maybe a few hours, I was downstairs in our living room playing with building blocks when I saw my uncle. I was so excited. I sat on his lap for a while and I talked to him. When my sister came downstairs about an hour later, she asked who I was talking to, and I told her Uncle Jeep. It says Jeep, too. I don't know why. She just froze in her place. Her face turned white. I just stood there confused. I had no idea that he had passed. 3 days later, my parents came home, and I told them about my encounter. That day wasn't really scary, but the weirdest part was that when my parents asked, what was he wearing? I told them, and they said he was wearing the same clothes when he died. Me and my family talk about my encounter every now and then, but I'll never stop talking about it to everyone I meet on the street or at school. It's just amazing. I think this is absolutely amazing, and it should happen to every family who's lost a loved one. I couldn't agree more. I mean, absolutely. Imagine the grieving process and how abbreviated it would be if our loved ones would come visit us and just say, hey, I'm good. Everything's fine. Don't worry. I love you and I'll be watching over you. It's like, okay, I can accept that. That's a profound level of closure. That's a profound and sweet and beautiful see you later. I don't like goodbyes, but it's like a see you later. I don't know. I wish more people would have those encounters, and maybe we all do on some level, but maybe it's not conscious, unfortunately. And maybe that's like that point that we hit. We're in the grieving process, and if you've ever lost someone you love, it feels like there's a hole in you that's going to last forever. Like you can't imagine ever not feeling that pain. And then after amount of time goes by, now some would say it's just the grieving process, and maybe it is, and maybe I'm just really fabricating something bizarre, but what if there's a point in our grieving process where maybe when we're sleeping, maybe it's some whispering in our ear from a spirit that's saying, hey, I'm okay. Everything's fine. And maybe that's when it doesn't hurt as bad, like it stops hurting so bad, and maybe they do visit us. And we just haven't felt it always. We haven't been aware of it always. The only times I've been aware of it is when it's happened in my sleep. And incredibly vibrant and vivid experiences, more real than I'm sitting here right now. I don't know how to explain it. It was just hyper real. Everything was so punctuated. The everything. It was just amazing. So, maybe we do. Maybe we do get those visits and we just don't know. But let's continue on. Beautiful story, though. I mean, the profound nature of that. This person sat on the deceased uncle's lap. That's a hell of a manifestation. Huh. All right. Well, next one is coming from California. And this has to do with miscellaneous stuff. So could be a lot of activity here. It's a little bit longer, but we'll get through it. It says, I've got something to share with you that might not be anything paranormal, but it's certainly really trippy. I have something to share, and here it goes. The past 3 years or so have been extremely challenging for me, including a divorce, homelessness, unemployment, on top of a pretty heavy depression that came with the fact that my life in general hasn't exactly worked out as I planned. I know, everyone goes through ups and downs. My point is, during those turbulent times, I picked up the habits of talking to God. I really feel a connection to God, and I like to thank Him, praise Him, and generally speak my mind to Him. And I also ask Him for protection when I think I'll need it, for long drives and heavy traffic, meetings, etc. And I've even asked Him to bless certain things that I feel are a gift from above, like food. It says herb, music, etc. And that being said, to the story we go. I'm sure I'm not alone In fact, I've been granted the gift of what? Okay, I'm sure I'm not alone. In fact, I've been granted the gift of direct TV for all those with the NFL package. You know what I mean? Truly a blessing from above. Anyhow, if you do have direct TV and you're probably familiar with the remote control, here's what I mean. The controller has a centrally located yellow select button and 4 adjacent buttons that control the direction of the channel, the guide, and browser. Well, several months ago, out of the blue, the up direction button just stopped working. Everything else was fine. I took out the batteries to see if they were going dead. Nope, they were just fine. So I just chalked it up as defective controller, and I didn't give it another thought until last week. Keep in mind that I use this controller seemingly hundreds of times every day, and the non-operational up button was something I had to work around every time I accessed the channel guide. Well, the other night, I was in my bedroom office working on the computer with the TV on in the background. And I was paying attention to the work on my screen mostly, but was distracted by odd sounds on the other side of the room. Sorry, I'm getting buzzed here. So, on the other side of the room, and just like the sound of things moving when there was nothing moving. It just struck me as weird. I was getting a little frustrated and distracted, so I decided to just go have a quick prayer. It hasn't hurt in the past, so I say, okay, if there are any unwanted or uninvited spirits in my room, I command you to leave in the name of Jesus Christ. I then gave the room a kind of so there look and went back to work on my computer. This is where it got weird. I had the controller resting on my keyboard tray between me and my keyboard, and the very next thing, after a couple of moments, I did after the impromptu blessing was grab the controller off my keyboard tray to change the channel. I hit the guide button to see if there was anything good on, and can you believe it? The up button worked perfectly and has since that night. What the hell? Now, it may seem trivial, but the timing of the whole thing was so close that it really seemed like there was something attached to this darn controller. Am I nuts? Please let me know if this is common on one of these controllers, that you think the whole thing was just a coincidence. If not, I've got to reconsider my occupation. God bless. Well, that's funny because in this house, this is an old house, pretty old house. I think it's, turn of the 20th century right in there that this house was built. So it's plenty old. And I can tell that it's been refabbed inside. I don't know how to explain it, but I believe these are old plaster walls that were replastered, and they all have these rounded corners, or, there's no sharp corners hardly anywhere. There are all these rounded corners, and I can tell things were reworked in here. And underneath the carpeting, you can feel like levels of flooring that has been ripped out over time and padded over. So I know this house has been, it's probably got a lot of issues, really. But the one thing that I had happen here, and I can't explain it, but it's one of those bizarre things very similar to the story. And it's so dumb, and it made me feel stupid, because what happened was there was like 2 outlets in different parts of the house that I could never get to work. I tested them with a voltage thing, and it never had any charge or anything. And it was just a pain, because they're right where it would be great to have a working outlet, but they didn't work. And the next thing was the light in my bathroom. And it's one of those twisty fluorescent bulbs, and it had burned out. So I went and got a replacement bulb, put it up in there, turned it on, it wouldn't work. So suddenly this light is not working anymore. And I'm like, oh God, now that's gone bad. And I'm thinking, all of the list of things that we're going to have to get fixed. So had a maintenance guy come around, probably 6 months after all this, the weird outlet stopped working, and then that bathroom light stopped working. And there's one other light that will just flicker every once in a while. And it's just like, God. So I'm thinking there's maybe wiring issues in the house or whatever. But I had the maintenance guy here. And I was like, there's these few outlets that we really need to get working, if you don't mind. And there's the light in the bathroom. That fixture is old, and apparently that's not working anymore. I tried replacement bulbs, can't get anything to work. So, he went and got the bulb that I had bought as a replacement, screwed it in, hit the switch, came on. He went out into the kitchen where the two outlets are that wouldn't work, plugged in a tester. They're working. And then he flipped on the flickery light that would never stay on for more than a few seconds, and it's working. So like when he was here, everything worked fine. And I was like, God, what the hell? I finally got this guy over here and I look like an idiot. Like I couldn't possibly change a light bulb, or I couldn't possibly plug something into an outlet and know that it worked. And I was just like, oh my God, it was so embarrassing because these things were not working until he showed up. Now the bathroom light has worked ever since, and those outlets have worked ever since. And the light, the flickery light's still a problem, but that's kind of like this. It's like, is it a paranormal thing? Probably not, but it was just, I don't know. It's just really weird. It's that odd kind of stuff that you really don't know what to do with. But is it a profound story? No, but it's a story nonetheless. So I have a microphone and you get to hear it. All right, next story. This one's coming out of Indiana, and pretty short one. It has to do with miscellaneous kind of activity. So let's see what's going on in Indiana, ladies and gentlemen. A while ago, I was with my friends, and we were babysitting my friend's twin brothers. And we'll refer to this friend as A. Well, A put his brothers to bed at around 10, and it was almost 12 midnight, and his parents weren't home. And B's mom wasn't there. And we got A. Where the hell did B come from? Oh, okay. B is my best friend, and she's A's cousin. So we were just hanging out. And so D, his neighbor, and his friends T and S came over. Jesus. I'm confused already. Weird stuff went on, like a hazy black mist that just felt negative. There's really no other way to explain it. There's an orb thing, and it was just a really weird night. I can't see things, but I can hear and I can sense. And it was so scary, and I'm really not scared easily. But ever since then, I've had these awful, terrible nightmares. Generally, I wake up crying and in a cold sweat, and this was last summer, which was June 13th of 2008. Me and B marked it on our MySpace profiles. Yeah, this is an old story. I'm still having trouble with these nightmares, especially when I go to bed unhappy. Like when I fought with someone or when I got broke up with. And when I'm happy and I go to bed, they are less intense, but still there. My friend who was there made me a dream catcher, but that really didn't work, and none of the others seemed to have been much affected. I had a few nightmares a week or so. Does that mean I'm crazy or weak or what? I don't understand why me. So I was raised to believe in ghosts, and my mom has been really involved with that, but she doesn't even get why these nightmares are still plaguing me. I don't know. When you're speaking, it's young people are going through such incredible changes physically, mentally, emotionally. There's just a storm of things going on for them. So, that's why there's the strong belief in the poltergeist phenomena being manifest by people on a subconscious level, because there is such a crazy amount of things going on and changing, especially in young girls as they're maturing into their, into teenagers. There's just an incredible amount going on. And I imagine, the psychic energy is probably off the charts. So I don't know, but things like nightmares, it's easy to run to a paranormal as an explanation, but I don't think that that's necessarily a good place to start. I think there's a lot more really normal things that you should address first before you run to paranormal. And just because you've experienced something paranormal doesn't mean that suddenly you're haunted because all these other things are happening. It's just, I don't know. just my 2 cents, whatever that's worth. But I don't think you start at paranormal for a explanation. The next one is coming from Arizona, ladies and gentlemen. This has to do with haunted places. So, and this is a pretty short one too. It says, over 20 years ago, as a young teenager, my friends and I would sneak out in the middle of the night and toilet paper each other's homes, or other people's homes, sorry. One night we decided to walk or cut through a cemetery. More than halfway through, we heard something and we all stopped. But it wasn't very loud. There were 4 or 5 of us, and it was the Happy Birthday song. I don't remember the incident or the instrument, or if I identified the instrument playing the song, but it was like the song was being played on a record player, because partway through the song slowed down and stopped before it was finished. Well, we argued a little bit about where the sound had come from, because we couldn't tell which direction it was coming from, but it was definitely from somewhere in that cemetery. We all got out of there really quick. As far as we could tell, there was no one there but us. It was a very strange thing to happen in the middle of the night, in the middle of a cemetery. We had walked through that cemetery before in the middle of the night without anything unusual happening. After that experience, we went back again on another night to explore or try to figure out where that sound had come from. And we didn't notice anything unusual. Also, there was nothing else near this cemetery to make the music. It was surrounded by empty cotton fields for hundreds of yards in every direction. I'm not sure we all agreed it was the Happy Birthday song, but we all heard it. Here's the thing, this is what occurs to me. You have to wonder. So they were going out to toilet paper somebody's house. Now, what if had they done that, something horrible would have happened? One of them could have been hit by a car. Or, you don't know. I mean, just any number of things. An enraged homeowner comes out and throws something and it hits a kid, or you don't know. Just any number of horrible things could have happened just because they were out being little jerks, And so could that have been the reason that some song rang out in the middle of a cemetery? Is there's some spirit just trying to help, trying to stop that from happening? I don't know. I wonder about that. Could those things be interventions? If it's a one-off event like that, perhaps they were just going to get into some shenanigans and have some real problems as a result. Hell, somebody could have just fallen down going through the cemetery and knocked their head or something stupid. I mean, any number of things. But then that song rang out and it stopped them in their tracks, and they left. So I assume they didn't continue with toilet papering. Maybe they did. But again, I have to think about that often, because we hear that theme come up all the time in paranormal stories. It's like, I was already late for work. I'm looking around and I always put my keys in this one spot. And I'm looking and my keys aren't there. And I checked it over and over. I'd go through the house. 15 minutes later, I look back and my keys are right where I usually left them. Like something had come and taken the keys and made it impossible for this person to leave at that time. They find the keys and go on their way and have a normal day. But if they had left at the time they were supposed to, could something have been about to happen? Could there have been some tragedy that was avoided by maybe if they were going to be driving, they wouldn't be on the road when a specific thing would have happened? Or the combination of them being on the road along with another person just at that same time, maybe something was going to happen. So I oftentimes think about that those could be divine interventions. They're silly little interventions. They seem inconvenient and horrible, but what if they're just as large as life, That one moment that they would have left would have been catastrophic, but because they couldn't find their keys, they missed that event and are okay. So, I don't know. I think that those situations are easy for us to judge as, inconveniences and, annoying tricksters things and mischievous, but what if they're as enormous as saving a life? So just a thought. I can't say either way, but it makes you wonder why then? Why then and the keys is just, it's a story that we've covered before, and we've covered many like it, but it doesn't matter what the object is, but it's just that, because the object itself is a small thing, but when the person couldn't do what they were intending to do at that time, it becomes huge. It becomes an act of God, it becomes amazingly beautiful. So I guess my point is, don't judge the situations too hastily. If you ever can't find your keys, maybe there's a reason you're not supposed to at that time. So just be patient. You might be saving a life. You might be saving your own life. You don't know. Or just a lot of problems or pain or whatever. So I like to think that anyway. I think that's kind of cool when you consider those possibilities. And I'm not saying that that's for sure what's going on in those situations. I can't know. Nobody can know. But what if? Then it becomes amazing, and then we become. Well, to me, it becomes comfortable because something is paying attention and is intervening to help me. And I think that's beautiful, because I think a lot of times we're grinding through this world in our lives and in the madness of it, and it feels like we're all alone. But when things like that happen, it's maybe we're not all alone. And that's a good thing. That's a beautiful thought. So what the hell? How did I do that? That is really strange. Oh, yeah. Okay, never mind. I was a little confused there for a second, but I got better. I got better. All right. Next story, coming from California. Okay. This one has to do with haunted places. This one's a little longer, medium-sized story, I guess, but let's see what's going on in California, ladies and gentlemen. Just taking a look here. Have I missed anything? Anything going on? Nope. Nobody's been yelling at me, which is always a good sign, I think. I've had that happen a bunch of times, Brent. Yeah, that's just it, Farm. I mean, what if that was the reason why? Like, it saved you from some kind of problem. I think it's a cool thing to consider. All right, let's continue here. Haunted place, California. My story takes place about 8 years ago. It was a cool evening. Summer was at its end, and fall was just about to take over. And this one particular evening, my parents and I were restless and not in the mood for television, so my mom, knowing how much I love ghost stories and anything related to ghosts, took my dad and me on a ride through the Castro Valley hills and mountains. There was a story that she had been told her entire life about a woman dubbed the White Witch. Now, I know there are many stories out there with the same name, but this one is really fascinating. The White Witch has nothing to do with our experience while driving through the hills that particular night. Our encounter happened after my mom finished her ghost story. We're driving along, the windows cracked to let in the cool evening air. The night was heavy with the fragrance from the trees, and it was a calming and relaxing atmosphere out in the hills. And as we're driving up the mountain on a 2-lane highway, we came across a man. His 2 young daughters in their broken down car, and needless to say, my mom's heart broke at the sight of the 3 of them stranded on the hillside. The car was packed to the gills and looked as if they were packed all of their worldly possessions into this small vehicle. Well, my dad pulled over to the opposite side of the road and parked in the gravel behind the stranger's car. The stranger and his 2 children were standing behind the car. My dad inquired if they needed any help, and the stranger replied, "Yes, please. My car ran out of gas, and I don't want to leave my 2 daughters alone out here." My parents offered to go back down the hill, the 2-lane hill, and get a few good dollars worth of gas for him and his 2 daughters. Well, the man was incredibly grateful and gave my dad $5 bill for the gas. My dad assured him we'd be back in a few minutes. My dad backed out on the gravel and back out onto the cemented road as the headlights caught them in its glare. And I remember thinking there was a surreal quality about them. Well, we descended back down the mountain. Now remember, this is only a 2-lane highway, and it's getting late, so There aren't any cars traveling this road. The man and his kids were the only people we had come across on this deserted hill. We get to the bottom of the hill and went straight to the gas station. Hold on. Yeah, okay. We got the gas. I purchased 2 candy bars for the 2 little girls, and we headed back up the mountain. We arrived at the same spot. They were broken down in less than 5 minutes, and to our surprise, they were gone. It was like they vanished. There was no sign of them whatsoever. Even the gravel was smooth, and not one tire track was visible from the stranger's car or my dad's. There's absolutely nothing to show that all of this had just been there 5 minutes beforehand. We were all feeling a little freaked out at this point because there is no way they could have gotten past us. The gas station was directly at the bottom of the hill, and we would have seen them if they had coasted down the hill. So my dad drives a little way up the hill just in case the stranger had gotten his car started and possibly drove a little. But no car and no stranger, and his 2 daughters were nowhere in sight. We drive back down the hill, and there's still no trace of the vehicle or the 3 strangers with their loaded up vehicle on that small inlet on the gravelly road. My parents and I were completely mystified, and chills ran up and down each of our backs as we tried to decipher what was going on. Here we were with a small plastic jug of gasoline and 2 candy bars, and there was no trace of them in sight. We could not get over how smooth the gravel looked. There was no way the driver drove off. There would be tire tracks, and it was like the 3 of them had never been there. After going up the hill one more time and coming across a dead end, we all simultaneously came to the conclusion that what we had just experienced was a ghostly encounter. The strangers did not leave tracks of any kind, and there had been something a little odd about them, their situation and their appearance. Something just did not feel normal. Ooh, that's a good one. Those are bizarre. The only other thing I was thinking is, what if it was like a UFO that could make you see something different? Like it was just sitting there grabbing samples, and it's like, oh, here comes some people. Quick, packed car mode. And then when the people go away, they just go down the hill to get the gas. They just take off. I don't know. It's a strange story. It's an odd sort of thing. But I don't know. I don't know what to make of those. Why would they be there? What could have happened? I guess it's anybody's guess. But cool story all the same. We got time. We got time for this one. This one is from Pennsylvania, and it has to do with haunted places. Duke. Hey. There's a lot of love going on in the chat. Oh, Cha-Cha just came in. Was she not here before? Cha-Cha, you just arrive. You're late, I just wanted to say that. Just in case. Weird. It is weird, Lindsay. All right, so let's go to Pennsylvania here and see what's going on in this haunted place. That's actually, wasn't that Bucks County's in Pennsylvania, right? All right, so this is actually my friend's story, and we'll just call him Rick. He told it to me a few years ago that he and his mother both had heard different things in their home, and I got his permission to share it. Before I go into the story, I want to give you some background on our town and his house. Rick and I live in a small logging town that has been around since the late 1810s or early 1820s, so our town isn't relatively new. The house in question was both the orphanage and county home for our county. One of the two was in operation when the influenza epidemic came through our area. The epidemic was exceptionally deadly in a town of a few miles away from our town, so it's assumed that at least a few people had died there. The first incident Rick told me about happened quite a few years ago, when he and his sisters were young and involved his mother. He said his mom was taking a bath one night and heard children running up and down the steps. Well, she let it go once or twice, but it soon came out of the bathroom to investigate, and she yelled at the door to her children and then went to each of their respective rooms to check on them. According to her son, none of the children were awake to have been running up and down the stairs. More recently, Rick and one of his other friends, Dustin, were at home alone. Most of the personal instances Rick relayed to me happened when he was home alone. They were about to go outside, and they were standing in his living room, and Rick was talking to Dustin and saw him glance past him once, closed his eyes tightly and looked again. And when Rick asked Dustin what was wrong, Dustin said he saw a little girl standing behind Rick. The next account comes from Rick's sister, Tanya. He told me that Tanya was sleeping in her room and woke up to see a homeless man walking across her room. Oh, that'd be horrible. Rick said Tanya told him that he pulled up a chair and sat across from her bed and just watched her sleep. The most recent of activity involves one of Rick's sisters. He didn't specify which one, but she was showering one night and was walking back to her room. When she went to open her door, she couldn't because her dresser was in the way of the door. I asked Rick how far away the dresser usually was, and he said it was close to 6 inches away from the door normally. Well, I told him not to worry about anything because he hadn't been hurt yet, and I said I doubted that he would be. I believe everything that goes on in his house is harmless, but I haven't been living there for close to 17 years, and Rick is scared to death. He refuses to stay home alone. Well, I told him all I know, and that's about the best I can do. Yeah, the houses like that are tough because there's so much different stuff going on. And it sounds like there's a lot of people still living there. There's a lot of people that have not left. All right, so let's see. This one is, how we doing? Yeah, we got time for one more. This is our last show for a couple days, so I'll give you an extra one more. This one's coming from Pennsylvania as well. It has to do with haunted places again. It's the same author. I think it might be, but it says I started working at a chain drugstore in my hometown about 4 months ago at the beginning of December. I never considered myself a psychic or anything relatively close, but now I'm not so sure. The first day I walked into the store as a paid employee, I had a feeling. It wasn't foreboding or anything, but it was there. I eventually forgot about it until I was working with one of my shift supervisors, Debbie, on Super Bowl Sunday. We sat behind the counter all night, bored, and eventually got onto the topic of ghosts and the TV show Ghost Hunters. And she told me about growing up in apartments and houses in a small town a few miles away from my hometown that she believed were very haunted. She also said that she thought her niece might be a sensitive. At some point, she admitted that she thought the store was haunted. I told her about the feeling I had the first day I walked into the store. And Debbie told me about mornings when she would open up the store and find things strewn across the aisles that were securely packed on their pegs or shelves. She also said that her manager refused to go back into the storage room alone after hours. In my own experience, I have been putting things on shelves from boxes, get called to the front counter to wait on someone, and go back to find a bag of candy I was stocking lying in the middle of the aisle. I am your friend for sure, Julia. Sorry, I just saw that. Last Saturday, my other shift supervisor, Aubrey, and I were working alone until closing, and we were doing cycle counts and straightening up the toy aisle. Well, she hung up a toy with a broken tab, and as we were walking by that aisle again, something fell, but it was only that toy. She then admitted to me that she believed the store was haunted. A few minutes later, we were working in the back room, and she had to go up front to help out a customer. And while she was gone, I continued doing counts, but stopped when I heard a noise, like the tapping of something plastic dropping onto the floor, came from the back room. It repeated itself once, and I stood and stared at the open door for a few minutes until Aubrey came back and asked me what was wrong. Fast forward a few more minutes, and she was up in the office counting her money drawer out and talking on her cell phone, and I leaned down on the counter, closed my eyes, and tried closing off my senses while keeping my mind open. I'll just call it centering myself, and it was while I was centering myself that the sound of a cell phone pulled me out of my focus, trance, or whatever I was in. I looked up at Aubrey, and she said her phone had turned off in the middle of her call and turned back on. I asked her how full the battery was, and she said it was completely full. I told her that ghosts sometimes pull energy from surrounding batteries and other energy sources in order to manifest. I tried centering myself again, and within a few seconds, I heard a noise. I looked up at Aubrey, and she looked like she had just heard or saw something. And when I asked her, she said she heard something, but wasn't quite sure what. I can't tell for the life of me who or what could be hanging out in a drugstore. I mean, it's situated by a river. That was a main route for the Native Americans, loggers, and settlers in an earlier time. I don't know what's up. Any old place, I mean, any place could have company. There doesn't always have to be a real definitive reason. They could just want to be there. Yeah, of course I'm your friend Julia. I'm just reading the chat. Okay. All right. Well, I don't know about you guys, but I'd say that's a show. So I hope you feel entertained. That was my purpose all along. If I've succeeded, please make sure to give it a like. Give me a like. If you're not subscribed, please get subscribed. I've been looking at the metrics, and actually we're doing pretty good. Most of the viewers of our show are already subscribed, but there's like 35% of people watching these shows that are not subscribed, and it would really help us out. So if you don't mind, we'd love to have you as part of our family. So, if you don't mind. So anyway, guys, that's about it. That's all I got for you tonight. I hope you guys are doing great. I hope you have a great Monday and Tuesday, and I'll be back with Dawn on Wednesday, and we'll tear it up like we do and see what we can get into then. But take care, everybody. Thank you. I'll be releasing the podcast after the show. I didn't get to it earlier. I'm trying to figure out how to fix my car. So, and guess what? I don't usually fix cars. So this is interesting. It's a good challenge though. But anyway, guys, love you all. Be good, be kind, be nice. Take care of each other. Help each other out. Find the magic in every day. And remember to laugh as much as you can. Y'all take care, and I will be talking to you soon. Wednesday anyway. But, if you have a story or anything you want to share, email me, paranormalportalradio@gmail.com. Follow us on Facebook if you're not already, facebook.com/paranormalportalradio. Subscribe here and hit the bell. Then you'll be notified when we go live. And check out the podcast on all the major podcast platforms. All of them. That's it. All of them. I don't know if it's really all of them, but it's most of them. So hope you guys will check it out, and we really love you guys, and thank you for the support and love and all the fantastic comments on YouTube, all the videos. I really appreciate hearing from you guys, and I respond to each and every one of them, unless somehow I miss it. But I will respond eventually. I just found some I missed like a few months ago. Like yesterday, I found them and I started responding. I'm like, I don't know how I missed these, but here's your response. So anyway, that's all I got for you guys. Take care, and check out the Teespring site. We're always putting up new stuff. We got a bunch of new things, new additions. If you haven't checked it for a while, check it out. It goes a long way to help support us and keep the show going and growing. So, all right, guys, that's it. Love you bunches, and sweet dreams.
Woo!